Sometimes a fresh start is the path to follow. Abandoning who you used to be in exchange for something new can prove to be quite rewarding. Or perhaps you can be led to believe that your life will improve for the better, only for everything to backfire like it did for our friend who came to be known as Mimir. Judging by his thick accent, one can assume that Mimir hails from Alba, now known as Scotland. Born as a fairy, Mimir spent the early years of his life under servitude of the fairy king Oberon as his personal errand boy and unofficial jester. When not servicing the king, Mimir would do what fairies typically do and walk among mortals with the purpose of causing mischief, but as long as King Oberon remained entertained, Mimir was spared of any punishment. The fact that Mimir was able to remain in the king's good graces is no surprise, as Mimir has always possessed a very kind mindset and a witty sense of humor. But, of course, Mimir could only use his personality to save himself a set amount of times, and so King Oberon grew tired of Mimir's antics, forcing him to abandon his homeland.
Lad, there comes a time in every man's life when he changes his name and heads north to make a new start.
Many years later, Mimir eventually made his way to the Nine Realms, and quickly learned all about the reputation of Odin, king of the Aesir. Having many years of travel under his belt, we can assume that Mimir took advantage of this time and vastly improved his levels of knowledge and wit. With this mental arsenal, Mimir decided to seek out and prove his worth to Odin. Upon approaching the Aesir king, Mimir took advantage of Odin's lust for information and provided him with a supposed well of mystic knowledge, when in reality it was just a well of water that Mimir had laced with enough magical mushrooms with the strength to make a god hallucinate. This led to Odin tearing out one of his own eyes, and he would have torn out the other one had Mimir not been there to restrain him. Despite Odin now being half blind, Mimir fooled him into thinking that he had been bestowed with greater sight. And so Odin hired Mimir as his primary advisor and the ambassador to all the realms, making him the Aesir god of knowledge and wisdom.
I'm the greatest ambassador to the gods, the giants, and all the creatures of the Nine Realms. I know every corner of these lands, every language spoken, every war waged, every deal struck. They call me Mimir, smartest man alive.
Although we have always known him as Mimir, it has been implied that Mimir isn't his original name. When he became a god, we can guess that this was when he had adopted that name. In Old Norse, Mimir means the Rememberer, or the Wise One. With his new deific status, Mimir grew his knowledge to a nearly omniscient level, claiming to know of every deal, every war, and every corner of the Nine Realms. And also, he's able to read and speak in mostly all languages. Mimir was a weird fit as Odin's advisor. Odin was very brash and frankly a warmonger, much like the rest of the Aesir. But Mimir was constantly seeking to establish peace between the realms, believing that it was the best plan to prevent Ragnarok, the Norse end of days. However, Odin wouldn't listen to any advice on peace and went on to lead many wars, specifically against the Vanir and giants. The war between the Aesir and Vanir was an especially costly one, leaving both sides devastated and weary. Doing what he does best, Mimir brought up the idea of peace by suggesting a truce. Odin would marry the Vanir leader Freya, uniting the two sides. After much convincing, this suggestion became a reality, and the war had ended. As time mostly full of peace passed by, Mimir found himself becoming friends with many of the giants of Jotunheim. Since Mimir spent a majority of his time traveling through the realms as an ambassador of the Aesir, the giants decided to gift him with Bifrost crystals in his eyes, making it way more convenient for Mimir to travel between the realms without possibly losing a crystal that he could carry. This was a tremendous honor, as the only other person to be bestowed with the eyes was Tyr, the Aesir god of war that fought for peace. Mimir's noble cause to maintain peace among the realms was doomed to come to an end. Odin's ever-growing paranoia and obsession with prophecies made him a danger to the neutral giants. After assisting Tyr in building his temple on the Lake of the Nine, the giants requested an audience with Odin, hoping to finally bring all of their conflict to an end. Hoping to be able to gain access to the giants' knowledge of Ragnarok, Odin agreed to travel to Jotunheim, but his treachery was exposed and the giants banished and cursed him to never return to the realm. Odin returned to Asgard in a rage and demanded that his son Thor carry out a mass genocide of the giants living in Midgard. A majority of them were murdered, but some managed to escape to their home realm with some help. After dealing with the primary suspect, Tyr, Odin confronted Mimir and accused him of also aiding the giants' escape. As punishment for his supposed treachery, Mimir was bound to an indestructible tree atop the highest peak in Midgard. Odin also decided to punish Mimir even further and remove one of his Bifrost eyes. It was here that Mimir realized that Odin had never been fooled by any of his tricks. And so, Mimir remained imprisoned in the tree atop the mountain, tortured by Odin every day for 109 winters. Another lore video down means that there is another story to be told. Thanks for tuning in to another God of War video. If you have any suggestions or criticisms, feel free to leave them down below in the comments, and also be sure to like or dislike if you feel is necessary. As always, until next time.